Hello and welcome to the F1 Feeder Series podcast, your guide to keeping up to date on everything in the junior single-seater world. I'm your host, Jim Kimberley, and welcome to a champion special. We got to speak to Victor Martin last month, just 1 week before he took the F3 title, but we have a podcast first, officially speaking, with the championship's best. It's not the way anyone would have wanted them to take the W Series title after the news broke about their shortened season. However, there's no disputing her credentials after 3 championships from 3 attempts. A very warm welcome to the podcast, 2019, 2021 and 2022 W Series champion Jamie Chadwick. Has it sunk in yet?
I think given the circumstances, not massively. It of course feels great to, I guess, officially have the title, but yeah, even still, I think being told on a phone whilst at home didn't quite have the same feeling as being at the track. But yeah, I guess at some point I'm going to look back and think, yeah, it's still something I'm proud to have achieved, regardless of how it ended up happening.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you here, irrespective of the circumstances surrounding everything, the timing of which is very curious. And as you can imagine, there's a few questions about that. We'll get onto that in a second, because also finding the time to join us and seamlessly edited, no one's ever going to notice, is another champion who won their championship in an unorthodox fashion like Jamie. But unlike Jamie, this guest didn't even show up to take the title, as they were too busy trying to win a second series in Italy. And I believe that's where he's joining us from now. And I think, from what you've just mentioned, that before we're recording, you've been testing today. You're getting ready for the finale. Welcome back to the podcast, Alex Dunne.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. We've been in the middle of a 2-day test at Mugello, ahead of the last round of the championship, and we've just come from the penultimate round in Monza to Mugello, and then in a week and a half's time we have the last round.
No rest for the champions. I thought it was no rest for the wicked, but this guy wins a championship and still stuck in the car. It's all going to slow down soon, though, Alex. We're going to get into that. Returning to the podcast after his debut in a busy July of motorsport, and we've got the F1 Feeder Series British F4 editor and occasional Ask F1 FS question asker, it's easy for me to say, Tom Evans. How have you been for the past 3 or so months since your last appearance?
Not too bad, to be fair. I'm a bit sad now because most of the racing's over, but I'm sure I'll cope until March next year.
Yeah, we've got F2, don't worry. Everyone's forgot F2 is still on, but it's just ages away, mate. So we're gonna be all right. Don't worry. Good to hear you and good to have you back on as well, Tom. And a quick reminder for everybody to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, where you can also find our previous episodes and some short videos of our best bits on the rest of the channel. If you are listening to the audio-only version, please leave a review on whatever podcast platform you're using. Every review and rating is so helpful. We keep getting new ratings every week. Thank you so much. And there was one, when I have mentioned before, about dropping a mention of somebody who leaves a review for us. And we did have one from the 29th of August, which I totally missed, so apologies. This is from VDogCat, and very detailed review. Look, everyone knows Drive to Survive has made F1 insanely popular. How do you impress your friends who watch every race? Nothing better than this podcast to actually understand which Frecker driver you can brag about, or which 13-year-old British sensation will show up in an AlphaTauri in 2030. Jokes aside, this is a fantastic podcast and the #1 spot to learn more about what junior single series drivers are like. Jim does a great job hosting, and I swear I didn't write this, guys. This is authentic. I especially like Zach O'Sullivan, Logan Hanna, and Gianluca Petikov, the nicest, insightful, and most down-to-earth junior series drivers on the pod so far. And I say so far, Jamie, you're also here, so you've got your chance. You can leave a rating on Spotify, review us on Apple Podcasts. Thank you to everyone who rates and reviews us. It really does help us out. Okay, let's go into W Series first, because we do have a champion here. You're now a 3-time champion. You took a 13-race podium streak, 7-race winning streak in that time. Pretty good. I'm going to start with a question I've asked all of our recent guests whose championships have recently concluded. How has the season gone from your perspective?
It's been good. Sadly, the now. So yeah, I guess I'm now reflecting on the season that we had, and honestly, I know it sounds weird to say, but it went better than expected. There's so many variables, so many things that can happen in a season. So especially with W Series where you really only get one race a weekend, you have to kind of make the most of every single one of them. And up until last weekend that we had in Singapore, it was all going surprisingly better than expected.
When you talk about the Singapore one, which obviously had the DNF, and then you had Hungary, which was when Alice won, I believe, you'd taken all the victories and you looked pretty certain with the pressure you're applying in Hungary as well to be surging ahead and possibly doing a whitewash of the championship. Was that ever at the back of your mind that you might actually think, God damn, I could win every single race this year?
It's funny, initially I sort of started to kind of think about like the gambling kind of side of it, of like, it's impossible to, surely like you can't win, like something will go wrong, like I'll have a clutch failure or something will happen. And I can't remember who said it to me, but they're like, stop thinking like that, because then you will have a clutch failure. So then I really just felt like actually we could win all these races. And funnily enough, Budapest, the year before, I had a really good race there and really liked the track, really liked the city, like everything about it. And I kind of jinxed it completely by telling everyone that that's the race I'm going to win, already going into the year. And it was the one that actually, obviously apart from Singapore, but I didn't. So, I mean, it was surprising being able to have that run of sort of good fortune and good results. But at the same time, I think momentum, and especially in WCs where you do, like I said, just get that short period of time in the car, it really does help to have that kind of, sort of good sort of momentum, like I said, and run of results.
Well, you didn't get in Budapest, but you finally got that win on home soil at least. So that would have been disappointing for the British fans to not have seen that if that didn't come to pass. Just briefly, as briefly as we can be, because it's big news, I'm going to focus on that recent news about the curtailed championship. When did you first hear about it? It broke on Monday, and how did you and your fellow drivers react, and how much did W Series keep you in the loop? I know it was kind of speculated about since around Singapore.
So the speculation started around Singapore, and to be honest, even the drivers weren't. I think it was so close to Singapore that it's touch and go for them to actually make it there. When we're in Singapore, we had a full briefing from everyone to kind of fully, be brought up to speed on everything, and that was honestly really valuable because whilst I mean, we're sort of there to just jump in, drive the cars, do our job. We're all part of this series that only came about 3-4 years ago. So it was really interesting for us all to kind of actually learn about the position they're in financially and the implications that might have had for the rest of the year. So we're kind of a little bit aware that it was not a dead cert for the rest of the season. But in terms of finding out about not doing Austin in Mexico, sadly, that was literally not long before you guys or everyone else found out as well. So it's been kind of news for us all, frustrating and I guess a bit disappointing from a just personal selfish point of view. But at the same time, when you listen to the people that have been involved in making the decision and the reasons why they've taken this decision to not do the last few races, you kind of completely understand it. And you kind of have to take that selfish attitude out the window and just sort of look at it as a series and what's best for them.
Yeah, and in the press conference, it sounded like Catherine Bonmuir is quite insistent that it's going to happen again next year, so seeming very hopeful about that. So we'll see how things shake out. Tom, from your side, Jamie's lead at the top of the standings was extreme. When I was doing some research, I think it was if you stopped racing around Silverstone, you'd still win, irrespective of everyone else getting a points bump, Jamie. So that shows the level of domination you had. But Tom, on your side, is a cancellation of the 2022 season perhaps not as disastrous as it could be if it was in a neck and neck fight like we had last year?
I mean, no matter whether it was a neck and neck fight or, domination like this year, nobody wanted it to happen. It's not ideal. The fans don't want it. The drivers don't want it. And obviously for press coverage of the drivers and their careers, it's not good either. But I think it definitely would have been, the fans wouldn't have liked it as much as it was a neck and neck fight and then it was suddenly cancelled. So I suppose in that aspect, it's almost good that Janie was so far ahead at that point, that it was looking unlikely that anybody else could win it. But it's still definitely frustrating for the drivers who were other positions. I think P2, there was a big battle for P2 in the championship. So it's frustrating for them. And, you know, it's frustrating for the people who want to watch it. You know, they miss out on the next 3 races. So I think definitely not ideal, but could have been worse.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed that we aren't getting the final races, but I feel that if they've gone down this route of looking to the future and securing that future, that it might work out better than persevering and just losing the entire series as if it weren't to happen again. So gonna have to wait and see. Jamie, on your side, took to some new tracks this year. Singapore for you, most recently was new, and then also Miami, new to everybody. You got 2 wins at one of them, and you're only ever DNF at another. How did you find them? City circuits or street races as well? Proper street races.
Yeah, I mean, especially Singapore was a proper street track, and challenging in every sense, to be honest, both physically, mentally, everything was tough about Singapore. Miami was cool event to be a part of, I guess, especially because it was the first time there'd been a new track. It felt like this sort of whole big thing for everyone.
You're the first person to visit the podium, I believe, the first winner at the track.
I think there's a weird fact about having the first double or only person to win 2 races there, because obviously W Series was the only one for 2 races. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I can claim that, but we'll go with it. Yeah, it was a really cool event and first race of W Series. But yeah, Singapore was awesome. It's tough because, you know, you go in and you've really got a handful of laps just to really nail it and learn the track and conditions. I was told that it would never rain in Singapore during the race weekend, and that it did not.
A lot of Ferrari fans may tell you otherwise when they lost the title essentially a few years ago.
Exactly. So yeah, qualifying was obviously very wet. The race was kind of going to be a bit mixed, ended up being dry, but it was an amazing event to be there. I mean, for me, the weekend was a bit of a mess. Little bit what could have been, but to be honest, in the race I didn't have much pace anyway, and very frustrating to kind of lose my head like I did and to go for a move that wasn't there. But at the same time, I think just looking at the weekend as a whole, it was so cool to be there and have that experience to drive a track that I'm sure only a handful of people have had the chance to drive.
Just quickly on the Singapore weekend, did you manage to get to any of the concerts? There were some big names there.
There were. I didn't actually, to be honest. And I would say that was for a reason that I was focusing on the race or anything like that. But honestly, it's just such a busy weekend. So much going on. Obviously, the W Series' position with, you know, where we were at in terms of times of day that we were racing at. It was just so busy, but bit of a whirlwind weekend, and one despite the results that I would want to forget. I won't forget in a while.
Yeah, well, you can try again next year. They seem to put on a show every single time they have an opportunity. You can just go as a fan. There's something here just about the differences with W Series that I want to go into. 2019, supporting DTM and small scale, starting something. 2021, 2022, supporting F1. How much difference did that make? And how much difference did having that Williams backing and also having Williams there with you? I can see you're kitted out with the Williams stuff right now. How much difference did that make with your racing in the championship?
Yeah, it's a good step up being part of the Formula One package. I think as Formula One's grown as much as it has, to be able to kind of effectively jump on the back of that with W Series supporting it. I'm sure a lot of the feeder series drivers will feel the same over the last couple of years. And I think from a just personal, I guess, professional point of view, being able to go to the circuits on a F1 weekend, there is quite a big difference. The way that the circuits are, the way that, you know, they get rubbered up over the weekend, the fans, everything. It does feel like this big level up, and you're sat in the pit lane and you're outside Charles Leclerc's garage and what have you, and you feel that step up. And that's cool to experience. It's great for the series to have that opportunity. And then, yeah, just from my side, I think, like I said, professionally, it just felt like quite a big level up, which is fantastic for the series. Did
you find the difference in your coverage? I know WC's got a decent amount of coverage anyway, but then on that Williams side of things, you did have, for example, that Silverstone weekend where you had Zach grabbing pole position and then getting the P2, and one of the best drag races I've seen all season on the over the line. We had Logan getting his win, had you getting your win. Did you kind of feel that you were getting a lot more in the spotlight from the Williams side of things as well?
Big time. I mean, I joined Williams actually back in 2019, so even when we're on the beach, but yeah, to be a part of the team over the last couple of years whilst we've been supporting the races has made a big difference. And I think having that support network, mainly this year, without the COVID restrictions, being able to spend time even with the other academy drivers, Zach and Logan, it was cool. And I remember Zach put it on pole, I think, earlier in the day, and I was sat in the assembly area and I had sort of a view of the screen and saw Logan put it on pole, and I thought, I've got to put it on pole now. There's no other option. So it's cool to have that, and shows the strength and depth of the Williams Academy as well.
Just an excuse me from my side. Anybody, you can hear some dogs barking in the background. It's not me. It's not me, Tom, or Jamie who is barking, if you're listening in. Tom, Jamie's not the only W Series driver now affiliated with an academy. Abby Pulling, Alice Powell are at Alpine, Jess Hawkins got Aston Martin. Do you think these drivers would have been picked up over the last couple of years if it wasn't for W Series and the visibility that's given them?
I mean, they're all brilliant drivers in their own right. You can see that with the performances they put in a W Series. I think some of them are slightly more complicated than others. So obviously Abby Pulling, British F4 in 2020 and 2021. Unfortunately, she didn't have the budget to complete last year, which was pretty annoying because she was doing reasonably well for her second year. Yeah, she was. Multiple wins and podiums throughout the year, I think. So I think that the chances of her getting picked up might have been higher than someone like Jess. Obviously, she did really well in, I think, Mini Challenge in 2017. And this year, she's the first female TCR UK winner, which is obviously, a massive thing. But I think from the perspective of a Formula One team, I think you're looking at picking up single-seater drivers 95% of the time. So I think someone like Abby, probably much more likely than somebody like Jess to be picked up if it wasn't for a W Series.
Yeah, it's good to see the opportunities it's given, and it's one of the reasons I really hope it does continue into next year for other future talent. Abby would be kind of lost, I think, if it wasn't, like you say, with the budget problems and the way the W Series does things is so different. Final thing from our side, as in the F1 Feeder Series side, that I need to ask Jamie. You went for the Indy test recently. How are the 2023 plans shaping up? Is there anything that you can tell us about which side of the Atlantic you'll be on?
Definitely can't tell you yet. Sadly, these things seem to take a while to finalize, but yeah, it's looking good. I mean, the test went well. I really am so grateful to have that opportunity to go out there, drive the car, get to know the Andretti team. I think it made a big difference in, sort of my viewpoint and stance on where we're looking at next year, which is great. Obviously, I want to be able to progress out of ultimately W Series into the next feeder series. I want to obviously stay in Europe if I could, but also the opportunities in America are fantastic. So ideally, sort of looking at both options where we can try and make the most of both sides, I guess, of the Atlantic, and what opportunities lie there. But definitely no sort of groundbreaking news to come today, but at the same time, it definitely is looking more positive than it has done before.
Oh, fingers crossed. Just looking down that 2023 route with W Series is financial struggles. Is that impactful on possibly what could happen next year, depending on the prize money situation and how that shakes out?
Potentially. Again, a bit too early to say on that, to be honest. There are amazing opportunities on the table, but still, it's not a small amount of money that W Series offer, and that is massively significant for anything. And I think this is a really horrible saying, and I don't want to get quoted on this, but I don't think no money is too much money in motorsport, because there's no such thing as too much money in motorsport, because constantly the amount of time that you can put into development, testing, everything is so valuable. And look at some of the drivers and the amount that they're able to do, it's massive. So yeah, it will make a difference for sure. But at the same time, I appreciate W Series' position, and there's far bigger parts of the puzzle than just me.
Okay, from one champion to another, Alex Dunne, it's only fair I ask you the same question that I asked Jamie. How has the season gone from your perspective?
I think the season's gone really well. I don't think I could really ask for much more. In the end, we've become champion. I broke the records for most wins in a single season. I think I got 5 poles, I believe, and quite a lot of podiums as well. So I think it's been a very, very strong season on the British side. And then on the Italian side, I think it's also been quite strong. We've been a little bit more kind of playing catch up to PREMA, because I think unfortunately, even though I got the opportunity to do UAE at the start of the year, unfortunately US Racing didn't get to do it at the start of the year. So that kind of meant that with kind of car balance and car setup, we were slightly behind. So we've been playing catch up the whole way through the year. But I think now we're really getting a lot closer, and now I'm second in the championship and catching the leader. So I think from both sides, it's been definitely different from one to the other, but it's still been really strong.
Your season has been busy, from the start. You talk about the F4 UAE side of things, and then this dual campaign. How different have you found the driving? Like, obviously the circuits are different and the drivers are different, but have you found it generally similar? Your level has been so high throughout.
Yeah, I think they're both fairly similar championships. The only real difference is the fact that Italian just has a much bigger grid. The past in Red Bull Ring, I think we had 43 cars, and in Monza we had 44, which is the most ever in the junior category. So I think the only real difference is the amount of people on the grid. I've always said the best way to describe it is, I think in British F4 there's maybe 5 drivers who are really good and can win the race, where in Italian F4 there could be 10 or 15, but that's purely because of how many more people there are on the grid. But I think they're both very good championships with very good drivers. I think they have a lot of similarities, but there's also differences which you can kind of take away from each of them and put together. I think in the British Championship the tracks are a lot tighter, a lot shorter, a lot smaller. So I think when you throw a reverse grid race in there, which is what we had on each weekend, you really have to be patient with your overtakes and have to look at where you can pass and when it's the right time to pass, especially somewhere like Alton Park or Brands Indy, where it's really tight and there's not really a lot of opportunity. So yeah, I think both championships are quite different in their own aspects, but you can really take different things from each one of them and put them together.
So what I'm hearing there is it wasn't anything to do with Italy. It was just Brands Hatch is too tight to get the overtakes done in the reverse grid race for you, and you wanted your overtakes. It's the Alex Dunne tax in the reverse grid race. I have likened this, Tom, that Alex's domination is kind of rivals Max Verstappen's in Formula One in some regards. It just doesn't seem to have been anyone else in the hunt. Is that too extreme a similarity I'm looking at?
I mean, in terms of the F1 to F4 similarity, it's probably a bit extreme. But in terms of driver domination, I wouldn't, say it's that far off. I mean, Max took 2-3 rounds to get fully up to pace, and Alex got a double win and a second place in his first weekend. So it was definitely, Alex has been on it right from the outset. His worst weekend, he still managed to get a win. So it's definitely been a good season for Alex here. And I think that, a bit like Charles Leclerc almost, Oliver Gray has always been up there. He's always been challenging for wins, but he's just never got, quite the level of consistency or speed that Alex has throughout the season. And then there's quite a big gap to third. So I suppose that is also quite alike to Formula One in some aspects.
Talk about the gap for a second then. So you've won the title in British F4, Alex, without even needing to show up. You had, was it 101 points advantage? And there's 102 points or something? It was so tight. It was
103.
Right?
It was so confusing because of the penalties.
Yeah. So the situation you had, choosing not to go to the finale, from the outside, I was like, you've still won the title. From the outside looking in, I just couldn't see that amount of points being overhauled. But I know what it's like when you're the person in the middle of it, not from a racing perspective, just in my own life. Did you have restless sleeps? Were you thinking, is this the right decision to do? Or were you a bit second guessing it just on the run up to the weekend?
No, to be honest, not at all. I think I was pretty confident that I had it won. I knew that what Ollie had to achieve was pretty much near impossible. So, I think I slept quite well actually going into Monza. So no, I didn't. I wasn't really too worried about it, to be honest.
You slept so well dreaming of your crown, looking forward to the next day. And then Mr. Loke comes out of nowhere with his pole positions right at the end. He saved that until the last minute, didn't he? So how did you find out the news? Were you keeping tuned in? Were you in the car at the time? How did it all unfold from your side?
I was actually watching live timing of qualifying. I knew that the situation with Ollie was basically he had to start. I think the only way you can start last in the reverse grid race is if you basically qualify last for all 3 races. Yeah. So effectively, he had to qualify last and win all 3 races from last. So I knew that the minute he qualified second, it was pretty much done.
And you just were you jumping into the car that day for the Monza round? Was it the same day it worked out?
I'm pretty sure that was the day of race 1.
Yeah, it'll be the Saturday morning. So
yeah.
So you win a title and then have to do racing anyway. It's a thankless task, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tom, you've been keeping a close eye on British F4 as well as a lot of championships, but we had Joseph Loke on last time you were on, and then Ollie Gray is now taking the vice champion title. We've got Ugo, Aidan, Louis all doing well, getting past 200 points, nowhere near the 400-point mark, of course. But outside of Alex, what were the headlines from this season, from your perspective?
I think, well, one of the most confusing headlines was the whole title fight penalty system, because I remember on the Saturday morning, all of the feeder series editors, we were trying to figure out whether Alex had won the title or not. And it was very confusing. And I remember messaging Alex on the Saturday and being like, have you won the title or not? And he did, in fact, confirm to me that he had. But I think that was one of the main talking points, especially later in the season. Outside of Alex's title, I think one of the biggest stories has been the shift in team performance. See, last season JHR were pretty dominant. They were, I think they had like 5 out of their 6 drivers in the top 6 in the championship or something. I can't quite remember. But they were, dominant last season. But bring the new car into the equation, different budgets of different teams, that's definitely shifted the kind of balance somewhat this year. But as you said before, by Joseph Loke getting 2 wins, 2 pole positions in the final round, it has shown that the team performance gap has come down significantly. And that's only a good thing. It's, you want as equal a playing field as possible for feeder series drivers to show who can really get the best results. And a final big talking point, I'd say, I think the rookies have been pretty amazing this year. Obviously, Alex isn't technically classified as a rookie, although it's his first season in British F4. And Ugo and Lewis have both had really solid first years. So it'll be interesting to see if any drivers slightly lower down the order return for next year and whether they can put up a championship fight or not.
Has been an interesting year. Just last bit on me from the questions on our side about doing the 2 championships side by side, 3 in total with F4 UAE, and then it's your final weekend in about 10 days from the point we're recording. So nearly there. You've almost made it for the season. How tired are you, or how not tired are you, and how much are you not looking forward to not racing?
I think I'm definitely definitely looking forward to a break. I don't really remember the last time I've been home for more than 4 or 5 days. So I think, as much as I love being in the car every weekend, it's nice to be home and relax for a little while. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna enjoy the last race of the season, but at the same time, I think I'll enjoy a little bit of time at home as well.
That's enough questions from me, because the F1 Feeder Series podcast is for you, viewers and listeners. We're going to move on to the hashtag AskF1FS part of the podcast. If this is your first time watching or listening, you can get involved by using the hashtag AskF1FS on Twitter, joining our Discord and using the podcast questions channel, or simply commenting on your YouTube videos and asking whatever it is that's on your mind. Or, and I need to put it in as well, or answer on Instagram when we put it on our story. As ever, loads of questions and probably can't get through them all, so apologies in advance. We are trying to get through as many as possible. The first question comes from regular question asker, CM Parfait 16. Hi, Jamie. Now that you have experienced both GT and single-seater racing, which one is more exciting and why? And I'm going to caveat myself and say plus that massive Odyssey 21 XV car as well.
Okay, I'm going to go off piece here and say, if I could, I would do rallying for the rest of my life, 100%. Wow. It's so fun. Definitely not maybe good enough at it to be able to make a career in World Rally Championship, but at the same time, it's the most fun I've ever had, and rallycross as well. It's awesome. So I guess if I ever retire and have to get into something, I'll make enough money to be able to just do something for fun. That's 100% what I'd love to do. But I think it's circumstantial. There's just certain races and certain things that I want to do just from a bucket list point of view. I'd love to compete at Le Mans. I'd love to compete at Daytona. Love to compete at Sebring. All these sort of big races, I guess, which obviously are more sports car based. But at the same time, there is something about single seaters, that pure sort of tiny, I guess, differences make a massive difference, and everything having to be pinpoint perfect that I also love. So it's impossible to say I prefer that or that. There's a lot I want to be able to do ultimately, but at the moment single seaters, yeah, still is the focus. I'm
really glad that you said single seaters, because I felt like I just totally jumped on CM Parfait 16's question by shoving the Odyssey in there, and then all of a sudden you're saying rallying. And
sorry.
No, not at all. Yeah, Jamie Chadwick is going to be a rally driver. That'll be the headline.
I absolutely wish.
This is from Mako Sato 46, and this one is for Alex. Do you personally feel like you can possibly be the first Irish-born driver in F1 since Tommy Byrne in 1982? So just a question on my side then. Eddie Irvine was born where? Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland. So
we compete under the Irish license, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
No. I wonder why you don't remember how young you are. I know. Continuing the question, I know how I'm getting ahead of myself, but being born in Ireland myself, seeing you drive so well, left me wanting to ask this question. So I think you've got a big fan here. How do you feel about possibly being the first Irish-born driver since 40 years? That is.
I think I'd like to say it's definitely possible. I think I'm the only Irish driver competing at such a high level and doing so well at this point. So I think I'm definitely on the right path. And I'd like to say that I'm doing the right things and achieving the right things to make it happen. So I think if I keep on doing what I'm doing and keep on having good and consistent results, I don't see why it shouldn't be possible.
No, I'd say the same as well. Your consistency has been so key in it. I've spoken to Dennis Hauger about this before because of the lack of opportunities from Norway. Do you feel like there's an extra pressure almost in being like the sole representative? Like Germany, France, UK, we've just got a plethora and you kind of always expect a driver. It's unusual when there's not a driver from one of those nations. Do you find it's like a help or a hindrance when you're the sole, the hopes of a nation, so to speak?
I think it probably helps more than it hinders me. I don't really feel pressure in the sense that I'm the only Irish driver doing what I'm doing at the moment. I think it's nice to see that since I've started doing well and started winning a lot more and when I won the championship as well, it's nice to see that there's a lot of Irish fans and Irish supporters watching me and really wanting me to do well. So I think if anything, it's more of a confidence boost and a nice feeling than it is kind of pressure on my shoulders.
This is from Alejandro Gil 017. I've probably butchered that name. So
I do it all the time, don't worry.
It says to Jamie, how is your brother Ollie doing and why did he stop racing?
Ollie's good. That's nice that you asked, actually. So my brother's the reason I got into the sport entirely. He was the one that started and I just followed him. I followed his route through. So for those that maybe have followed us for a long time would have seen us in Ginetta Juniors. And then he continued to race for Ginetta for a couple of years after, before stopping. He stopped because of budget, to be honest. For him to keep progressing in the sport, there weren't opportunities for him to keep progressing. Whereas for me, I had a few other partners and sponsors that helped, and then obviously W Series made a massive difference. And he's good. He's found things that he enjoys doing. He still does track days and things every now and then. We go karting every now and then as well. He's still very competitive, but it's good. He's good, and he's very supportive of me now, which is great.
Does he beat you when you go karting, Jamie?
No, obviously not. Depends who you ask. Last time we went karting, I was convinced I was quite a lot quicker, and he told everyone that he was quicker. So I'm a bit confused by that, but yeah, like I said, depends who you ask.
Siblings, that's never going to change. This question comes from @Dan Castell on Twitter. Castell, apologies Dan, however you say your surname. Castell, let's go with that. To Jamie, how come the seat at Carlin in F3 for this year wasn't desirable to you, and what made you take the decision not to take it?
This is a good one actually, because I do get asked this, or I read things about this all the time, and it wasn't just that it maybe wasn't desirable, it was that I couldn't fund it anyway. I mean, there's sort of finer details of the sort of financial deal, I guess, I won't discuss, but the budget that I had or this financial support I had from winning W Series wasn't enough for what I needed for the rest of the seat. And on top of that, it was without testing. So if I then had to find extra test budget, it still wasn't favourable. And some people won't understand this, some people might, but from my side, if I go into F3 or, in any category, I want to give myself the best opportunity to succeed. And Carlin are an amazing team. They've got amazing infrastructure, but at the time looking seat or the F3 seat, it wasn't favourable to maybe have the success that I wanted to. So yeah, there's a few reasons behind it. The main one is that I didn't have the budget for it, regardless of what some people might say. But at the same time, I feel like I'm developing constantly, and I want to be in an environment where I can succeed as well.
I'll say it all in one question because it kind of links into each other. One is from Wes Manbridge on Twitter, and one is from Not English as Proven by DNA, or Ice Cream Mean Van on Discord. And they both hint to the fact, do you think there's a chance that Iris Motorsport could come back? And what do you think about Mondello Park / do you think we could ever see a Grand Prix
there? Irish Motorsport in the sense of drivers, or in general?
I think it looks like it's coming back to going back to Mondello Park.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think in the sense of drivers, pretty much the same as what I said before. I think it's definitely possible if I keep on getting good and consistent results. I think if we stay at a high level and carry on doing well, I think from a driver's side, I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. Mondello is a track I've driven it myself once or twice. It's quite fun, but a Grand Prix going there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's homologated for a Grand Prix. It's quite a tight track, so I'd say the chances of a Grand Prix going there are quite unlikely, but you never know.
After your 10th championship, Ireland might try and step up the facilities. 10th championship in F1, that they'll do it. The thing that comes to mind with a lot of these, and I've never been to the track, I don't know it, it always comes down to like the facilities around it as well, which can be massively problematic. If you don't have decent road networks or transport links, that can always have massive impacts. I'm not sure Mondello Park, if that would be a problem, Alex.
I mean, one way out of the track leads you to a big town, and another way is kind of to the countryside. So I would say, in terms of traffic and that sort of stuff leaving the track, I wouldn't say it would be too bad.
This one comes from Mike Wallace, or @mwallace997 on Twitter. He says, to Jamie, what do you see the future of W Series will be given how the season ended, and what will this mean for women trying to get into single-seaters?
I really hope W Series can find something for next year and go forward, to be honest, because whilst I understand the kind of argument against why W Series exists, it still gives 18 drivers an opportunity to be driving a single-seater and getting that experience racing. And I'm definitely a lot better driver now after 3 years in W Series than I was at the beginning of it. So regardless of what people say, I think it definitely has its value, and it is helping develop female talent. As well as that, it's creating role models, for young girls getting into it, and also an achievable step. If you're a young girl in karting, and you see, you know, W Series being, I guess, just above an F4 level, the budget that you have to find, whether it's in sponsorship or private backing, however you find it, to get to W Series is achievable, or potentially achievable. Whereas to get to F3, F2, F1 ultimately without, you know, support of an F1 team or, you know, a big backer is a much bigger step. So I've spoken to a lot of young girls that are aspiring to get into W Series, and ultimately that's their goal. So to see that step or that kind of platform disappear will be a massive shame. So yeah, I really do believe it has its purpose and it has a place in the sport. Fingers crossed they can find a way to make it survive. I think the thing I think is it'll be great if they can continue on the Formula One package, but if they can't, still to have more races and still an opportunity to be racing. I think the seat time is the valuable part for all the young drivers.
Yeah, I want to echo, and I've said this, I think, every time W Series gets brought up with its criticism, that I think what you've just said, Jamie, is perfect, because you have spoken to those young girls who might be inspired by people like yourself, like Alice, like Abby, like Emma, like Beitsker, etc. That I feel a lot of people miss the point that W Series might not have a Formula One driver in it currently, but there could be the 10-year-old, the 6-year-old at the karting track who would not be there if it wasn't for you and seeing you in W Series. So the Formula One visibility does genuinely help because people watch it because of the Formula One. But I do feel that Formula One might come back in the future. Formula One's always going to be there. So if W Series has to take a holding season supporting something else, and but yeah, I think that's the thing a lot of people do miss. It's inspiring the future.
Exactly. And on that, just because it's something I do feel quite passionate about, is it's an experience gap. At the moment, I can't think of a young girl that's had the same sort of, I guess, pathway through the sport as, say, Lando Norris. And that's just a numbers game. That's just because there aren't enough young girls starting in karting, but they've not started at the age of 8. No one in W Series, I believe, has started age of 8, done World Championship karting, done top level F4, F3, gone through the ranks as, you know, most of the young drivers are at the moment. So what W Series is doing at the moment is the female drivers that there are around is providing that kind of opportunity to bridge the gap of experience that they currently don't have. And that's not just drivers, that's also mechanics, engineers. I find it really cool because my mechanic, or one of the mechanics I had on my car this year, Cleo, she just progressed up into the Alpine team. So she's now been able to kind of bridge the gap of experience, learn, I guess, her craft in W Series, and now take an opportunity in Formula One. And that's another woman progressing into the top level of the sport, which is what it's all about, in my opinion.
Next question comes from Instagram, from Yaz Weston. And the question is, was the UAE F4 win at Dubai, where all drivers but you were penalised, the most bizarre win of your career?
I think that definitely that is the most bizarre win I've had in my career. You know, to see that every single driver on the grid except me got a penalty, and I lined up on the grid and looked in my mirrors and there was no one there. I wasn't really sure what was going on. But in the end, I was lucky that I made the right choice, and it shows that really reading the rules can come in handy sometimes.
Now, Sebastian Vettel has taken so many points, like overtaking in the pit lane entry and stuff like that. Knowing the rule book is such a good thing. So yeah, keep up on that.
I remember watching that live, and it was the weirdest thing ever, because I think it was Alex went to the grid and then Kimi went to the pits and everyone just followed him. So I think some drivers might have known the rules, but we're just like, oh, everyone's going here, so I thought maybe I will do that. But yeah, that was
confirmation bias of seeing somebody else doing it. You just want to odd one out, but it seems to be the right way. Tom, this question, I really want to know the answer, if you'd ask it for me.
Yes, this one is from this username. I'm sure it's shown on screen here, but it'll take me about 10 years to read out. It says, to Alex, how was the battle with Kimi and Rafa over this year, and how difficult was it? I'm going to presume that it's saying, how was the battle with you, Kimi and Rafa, over this year?
Yeah, I think battling with Kimi and Rafa this year has been tough. You know, I think they've had, you know, I think from the start until recently, they've definitely had a performance advantage. I think which has made things slightly harder. Again, like I said, you know, we've been kind of playing catch up all year. I think there's been a couple of situations where my racecraft has definitely come into play and helped me. You know, there's kind of I think a couple of times I've been in a situation where it's a PREMA train in front of me, and when they start racing, I've managed to pick up a couple of places and end up being on the podium. So I think yeah, they've been respectful towards me so far, and the racing's been pretty good. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in the last round.
Yeah, it's not long to go as well. I'm really curious to see how much of a dent you can make or maybe overtake in that final round. So best of luck for that. And
thank you.
We're unbiased here, but you're on the podcast, so go you.
Thank you.
There's a question here, there's two questions here actually, which are kind of similar. And one's from Health Scouts. The other one is from Harvey Howell 33 via Instagram. First one, both of you, I'll just do you plan on running F3 in the near future? / from Harvey, what are your plans for 2023 and beyond? But let's stick on the 2023 side of things. Are you in conversation now?
I think the plan is definitely to go F3. Of what form or championship, I don't know yet. I think I definitely would like to say that I will be doing F3, but I'm not really sure on where or what just yet.
Is that something that you're on? Is that your winter plans to try and get that sorted out?
Yeah, pretty much. And
when you talk about something similar, are you classifying regional in that sort of area, Formula Regional?
To be honest, I think it's hard. I think the main F3 series at the moment are kind of, you have FRECA, you have FIA F3, of course, you have GB3, and you have Euro Formula. So I think, to be honest, I don't really know yet.
This next question comes not about W Series, but about other series that you have been in, and it's from Mountain on Discord. After success in W Series, MRF, Asian F3, not so much success, but what happened during the 2020 FREC season and why was it so difficult?
Many reasons it was difficult. I think I was, of course, with PREMA, which is one of the top teams, and they're an amazing team, amazing to learn and work with them, work with good teammates. It just fell apart for me personally. I struggled a lot physically, which didn't help. That car is really heavy on the steering. I'm not too sure how many drivers talk about it, but it's something that I struggled with. And without taking caster off or, changing the steering rack geometry, which ultimately for me reduced performance, it was really difficult to drive. So that didn't help. From there on in, it was just quite a struggle of a season, to be honest. I didn't perform at all anywhere to the level that I should have done. Of course, part of that is me. It's probably the highest level that I competed at. But at the same time, I don't think it's reflective of where the W Series drivers were at or even I was at. And there's a few factors, like I said, behind that. But it's one of those things that I cannot wait now to get out of W Series and again have the opportunity to be in mixed competition, because I do feel a little bit like that season has made people forget maybe about the MRF Championship and about Asian F3 and about other series that I've had success in, I guess.
No, that's an interesting point. I would like to say as well, because there's other questions I know we're going to be pushed on time on certain things, that you mentioned that mixed gender stuff, but you say the last couple of years you feel you've progressed as a driver a lot more. And another point that you said earlier with regards to the age, I've seen a lot of people defend Jehan Daruvala about him only joining karts at 13, so give him more of a break. And I feel that's not really extended the same to everybody else. And it does sound like, from what you're saying, that not all drivers that you see on the F1 weekend or anywhere are created equally. I don't know if there's anything you can say off that.
No, you're bang on. I think it's really frustrating our sport in a way, because there is this attitude that you had to be there yesterday. And I don't know, it's unlike any other sport where, if you're a professional tennis player and you only get to your first Grand Slam final when you're 30, it doesn't matter. You still got to your Grand Slam final. It doesn't matter when you get there. You could still have the opportunity to get there. Whereas in motorsport, you seem to get kind of written off quite early, I guess. And Jehan's a good example. He started when he was 13. There's quite a few other drivers. Jake Hughes started very late as well. I started when I was 12, did 2 years of club karting, went straight into Ginetta Juniors. I was saying actually to someone the other day that it's funny, when I was in Ginetta Juniors, I was fast at times, but I had no racecraft. I couldn't race. And it's just because I hadn't really experienced it. So I get thrown into that and you learn. And I just feel like I'm constantly learning, and age really shouldn't be something that should be a restriction. I think
Nick de Vries is proving that right now, right?
Exactly. If you're good enough, you'll get there eventually and be there on merit, and I think that's all that should matter.
Oh, well said.
I don't think that's helped by the amount of really young drivers made it into Formula One recently. Obviously, Norris, Russell, people like that, they're all extremely young, and that's quite unusual. So I think often people now have this stigma that you have to be that young to get into Formula One, which isn't particularly helpful, as you said, Jamie and Jim.
This question comes from another regular question asker, Sam, SOGSV5 on Twitter. To Alex, when deciding where, and referring to your two F4 championships and your Winter Championship, and who, referring to US and High Tech, you drove for this season, what do you factor, or what factors into that, I think is what they're asking. Also to Alex, good luck on your journey. It's amazing to see Irish people climbing up the ladder, and hope you can show it in F1. So another supporter of yours there. But with reference to where and who, what sort of things are you taking into account when you made that decision last year?
Well, I guess I'll start off kind of from the beginning. The decision with us racing initially came about when I was in Spanish F4. I think they watched me at the start when I got pole position and a podium in my first race, and I think they were kind of watching me, and then they asked, when I announced that I unfortunately wasn't doing Spanish F4 anymore, they asked if we would like to do a test with them, and that went really well. And then obviously I did the 3 rounds in ADAC with them, which went really well again. So that was kind of an opportunity that was already there from the previous season, because they were impressed and happy with me, and they wanted me to do the following season with them in Italian F4. So I think at that time that seemed like a really good opportunity for me, because Italian was, there was a lot of cars, it was really competitive, everybody was watching it. So I thought that would definitely be a really good option for me. And then the High Tech situation kind of came about with the UAE Championship, when Oliver Oakes asked if we would like to do it with him, and I think you don't really say no to a 6 weeks, I guess you could say, practice championship for the racing season. And I think in the end it went really well. I really enjoyed working with everybody. I think we kind of we clicked together and worked well. It started off difficult, but in the end it came good with 2 wins and a couple of podiums. So I really enjoyed working with everybody, and I felt really welcomed, and yeah, really enjoyed the atmosphere in the team. And then because we did so well and worked so well together, they asked if we'd like to do British F4, and I think we saw that as a good opportunity. High Tech have a ladder all the way to F2, which is definitely something really good to have in a team. If you're performing well in a team and they're happy with you, to have access to something like that is really strong and really important. So I thought it would be a really good option, and I guess in the end both came to be a pretty good choice.
If they treat you as well as they treated that cardboard cutout of you that I saw on social media over the last couple of weeks, yeah, you're in a good place. Is doing something in UAE / doing the Asian Championship something you're considering for this winter, possibly to warm up for next season as well? How it's helped this year?
Well, I know the F3 Asia Championship is on again. I think I would definitely really like to do that. I'm not sure whether or not I will, but if the opportunity came about, I would definitely take it. I think it's definitely a really good opportunity for practice, learning the car. There's a lot of really good drivers who tend to do that championship. So yeah, I think I'm not sure, but if the opportunity came about, I'd definitely really like to do it.
Well, I celebrate it because it gives us something to watch when it starts getting a bit too boring in the middle of winter.
This one's from Discord. It's from Whole Lot of UK, and they say, Jamie, what are the biggest differences between the Indy Lights and the W Series cars?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, actually, because I've been asked that quite a lot recently. The main thing, obviously, it's a step up in performance generally. Power, downforce, just generally weight. It's a step up. But at the same time, I think the way you drive the Indy Lights car is quite different to what I've maybe experienced in my sort of original single-seater career. It's quite busy. You fight the car a lot. You hustle it. The tracks over there where I tested at Sebring is very bumpy. So it's quite different in the sense that it's not necessarily quite as pinpoint accurate as some of the stuff that I've driven in Europe. It's more trying to hustle the lap time. And I guess my extremely experience seemed to help when I tested, I felt. But it's great. It's a really fun car to drive. The W Series car, based on the regional car, is very heavy. W Series is a bit lighter, but still a heavy steering load. You are, like I said, a bit more pinpoint accurate. But yeah, it's definitely feels like a big step up going into the Indy Lights car, which is cool.
I think a lot of our listeners, because of the nature of the people who watch feeder series and the insight that we like to get, we know all the foibles about the W Series cars and the differences between the chassis and everything, that I could imagine going in the Indy Lights car is the epitome of chalk and cheese, especially with the power that you've got in that. It would be, I'm jealous of all the cars you get to drive. I think that one is the powerhouse one. I'm going to skip a question here and let you take the next one as well, Tom. I think this one is from Daniel.
Daniel Scouse on Twitter, I'm not sure, says, question for you, Jamie. What was your favourite win this year?
Has to be Silverstone, for sure. I mean, it's the one that I guess looking at 2021, I just felt, I mean, I wasn't going to win that race. I definitely wasn't quick enough, but it's the one that I was a bit sad that I didn't have the opportunity to fight for the win at, and to come back this year and get pole, get the race win on home soil at a track that I know and love. It was very special.
I would say Snetterton race 3. I think if I remember correct, I won by 10 seconds, and I had the fastest lap by 8/10, I think it was. So that was a pretty dominant race, and I enjoyed that one.
So nothing to do with overtaking in reverse grid. It's all about I want to dominate and humiliate my opponents. Is that the Alex Dunne way?
Pretty much, yeah.
This one is from, I think, also regular question asker, Dan Castell from Twitter, who says, to Alex, what will be the advantages of potentially joining the FDA Ferrari Driver Academy, and would they help with funding a seat for Freaka/F3?
To be honest, I have no idea. We don't really know or see those side of things. It was just a scouting camp that we got asked to go to, where they basically assess you as a driver. So to say what would happen potentially, or if they would fund something in FREC or F3, I really have no idea, because it wasn't really something that I was involved in, or that's not really kind of what the camp was about.
How did the camp go from your perspective? Oh, Jim's, yeah.
No.
How did it go?
Ask the question, please. You jumped in. You know exactly what you're reading my mind. So please ask the question.
How did the camp go from your perspective? Obviously, you probably don't know what they were thinking, but what did you think about it?
I think I'd like to say it went quite well. It was basically consisted of mental and physical assessments, and then the format of an Italian F4 race weekend at their test track, Fiorano. So it was in the current gen F4 car. So we had free practice, a qualifying, and a race sim. But I think everything went quite well. It was a good opportunity for me to learn and develop and experience what it's like with a high level Formula One team. I think we have a couple of things in line, but we'll have to see how different things go.
Can I ask us just a follow-up question? The final question you'll be happy to hear, Alex. But how does that come about? Do you get taken to one side, like with the Ferrari sort of things, like whisper in your ear, come over this way, I need to ask if you want to come to the scout? Do you just get an email, a text message? How does all this start?
Well, it started by, we got an email asking if we would like to go and do their annual scouting camp. So they basically asked me that they were watching me racing in British and Italian F4. And I guess they're there every weekend in Italian F4, so they always have someone there watching. So I guess that's how it came about. So yeah, we received an email of them asking if I'd like to do it. So that's kind of how it came about.
As a young driver, though, having a Ferrari in particular, how many drivers have driven Fiorano as a track for one, and then just having that sort of interest from a global brand like Ferrari? You must have been delighted to get that sort of thing, thinking, yes, I do. You must not even thought no. Who says no to that sort of opportunity?
Yeah, I was pleased. I think it's nice to see that my talents being recognized and people are watching me. I think it was definitely a good opportunity for myself, but I think also in a non-cocky way, you could say, I think at this point I'd like to say it's almost something that maybe should be happening. I think I think we've done really well this year, so it's nice to get the recognition for that. But yeah, I was definitely really happy when we received the call, and it was definitely a good opportunity for myself.
Well, at the start of this season, we had a podcast where we were talking about drivers who should be in an academy who aren't in academies, and we'd probably do the same next year. And if your name wasn't put in everyone's list,
I wrote that article. I'm pretty sure you were on it, Alex. I can't remember, but
yeah, I think at this point after your season, it's a definite thing that at least one of the Formula One teams should be looking out for you. So fingers crossed for that, mate. Fingers crossed to see what turns up.
We'll have to wait and see.
This one's from earlier as well. Venus on Discord. What is your favorite cheat meal?
My favorite cheat meal? That's a new one. I've never had that question before. To be honest, I have no idea. I mean, does pizza count?
That's very much counts.
I'll say pizza. Yeah, if pizza counts, I'll say pizza.
What's your pizza toppings if you're going to have a pizza?
Pineapple? Spicy pepperoni. But pineapple is good too. I like pineapple. Actually.
Yes, the first person I think I brought up on a driving. You're going to offend all of Italy, but you've got my support. Yeah, the pineapple pizza is very controversial, but Alex Dunne approves. I like that. Tom, you're shaking your head.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm not an approver of pineapple on pizza. I'm going to be honest.
Hawaiian pizza is terrific.
Cheat meal.
The difficult question comes at the end, Jamie.
Yeah. I know it is difficult because I love food, and yeah, I'm going to just take this whole question to my own answer and just go with it. But if I had like a last meal before my last supper, I guess.
Liz Truss here asking your own question.
Yeah, I know. I think it would be a curry, like a really good curry.
What's a really good curry though?
Where I'm going next, actually, I'm taking, if anyone knows Boyo from Double R, he loves a good curry as well. We're going to a place called Amare in London. But a curry's good. A roast dinner is always, if I'm not racing on a Sunday, or even because the W Series race on a Saturday, I always try and get back to the UK on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning so that I can watch the F1 at home with a roast dinner. So I say a roast dinner, but I don't know if that's a cheat meal. So if you're going cheat meal, I'm going to go pizza, which is about 4 different meals.
I'm going to disregard everything I just said and say pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a PREMA influence on you, all that Italy.
Although, even when I was in Italy, I never really had much pizza. There's a lot of pasta.
Oh.
Yeah, no much pizza.
Okay, well,
that's the only reason I would go to Italy.
Exactly.
I know.
I'm going to ask another question. What's your favorite pasta?
I don't think you can go wrong with what are they called? Pomodoro. Just tomato pasta. Yeah, because it's what we had pretty much every day at PREMA. Cases. I remember. I'm just going to tell a random story, but I remember when I came back from being at PREMA, I kept getting really bad headaches in the day. I was like, I don't know what's going on, and I realised it's because I was having about 5 or 6 espressos.
I was about to say that's not pasta, that's coffee.
Exactly.
Did you enjoy the Italy time, like living over there, or not living, spending so much time over there?
I did. I mean, it was a very cool experience, and PREMA are awesome. I mean, I didn't have a good year at all, and I could easily just feel like that brought down the whole experience of being in a team like that. But actually, they're so cool, and full credit to them. Even the drivers that I was teammates with, it's really cool to see how they operate. I used to love watching the F4 kids because I never did F4 or anything like that, and I'm quite a lot older than them. But I just love watching what they get up to because they're all just playing games every second that they've got, that they're not in a race car. They're just like playing football or making up their own games. They're all like best little friends, and yeah, I look back at that with good memories, even though it was a tough year.
That's really positive and a really nice positive note to end things on. So I'm going to say that's all the time we have this week. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. If you'd like to have your question asked on a future episode, use the hashtag AskF1FS on Twitter. Drop any questions below if you're watching on YouTube, or let us know what questions you have on your mind on our Discord. Look for the Podcast Questions channel and on Instagram's story. If you are watching on YouTube, dropping a like on the video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel all really helps us out. And if you are listening, leaving a review on the podcast platform you're listening on is greatly appreciated. Finally, check out f1feederseries.com for more feeder series insight, and follow F1 Feeder Series 1, F1 FS Americas and F1 FS Live on Twitter. You can find all the links to those, plus the Twitter accounts for myself and everyone else on the podcast, in the YouTube description or the podcast show notes. Until next time, we have been the F1 Feeder Series podcast. Goodbye.